Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Esteban's Blood Box. So we're here to talk about things metal, all things around metal and such. I'm going to turn this down just a hair. But what we're doing today is new wave of traditional heavy metal, and what we're listening to is Sabir Gates Ajar on cassette. I also have the vinyl. We'll be talking about that as well, but I have the cassette to play while we're listening to it. So, a genre I have been getting into and I love very, very much. It's all pretty new to me. I honestly, classics, like classic metal, like Judas Priest, a lot of that 80s stuff. I didn't listen to a lot of it growing up, but I'm starting to get a little more into it, and a big part of that is because of these new bands that are doing that style of music and sort of bringing it all back. And it never went away. It's kind of classic heavy metal that's been around since it began. It's still going. But there is definitely a resurgence of this, especially in the last 10 years, particularly the last 5 years. Lots of amazing bands coming out. It's called a new wave of traditional heavy metal, but that's an all-encompassing genre name for a lot of different things going on. Just traditional or classic heavy metal works as well. So I have a YouTube channel to thank for getting me into this. If you follow my Instagram, you have seen me talk about this and post about this as well. But Chromium Dioxide Radio. If you are not following that channel, you need to do so immediately. It is the best thing on the entire internet that exists, or probably will ever exist. So go, stop this video, go to Chromium Dioxide Radio, and subscribe to that channel immediately. It is a hell of a lot of fun, and also I've discovered a lot of great music through it. And I would say that this genre of music I discovered through the Barbecutioner over at Chromium Dioxide Radio. Starting with the very first video I saw from that channel, which was an earlier video, but not the earliest video. He shared Sabir Gates Ajar, the vinyl of it. I loved the album artwork when he showed it, and also this was the song that was playing, and it's fucking awesome. It's called One for the Road. Just a killer, fun 80s style song. Love everything about it. Even on this one, the production sounds 80s. It's got just that sort of tape feel to it. A lot of like a reverb chorusy layer over everything. Just very traditional. And to my understanding, everything is played on the album by this individual, and I'm not 100% sure his name. I can't remember. But he's playing everything, guitars, bass, and drums. Now, of course, he has a live band too, so when they do play live. But yeah, really good stuff. There is a new album coming out at some point. To my understanding, it's written. I had the opportunity to get to chat with the main member behind this band on Instagram a little bit. Super nice guy, extremely talented. So I am super excited to see what comes from Sabir in the future. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. Some of my new wave of traditional heavy metal albums that I have just begun collecting. It's a much smaller part of my collection than black metal and some death metal and stuff, but it is quickly growing. So, moving right along, another sort of new classic band that has been doing this for a while and is very well known in this genre, Eternal Champion. This is the Ravening Iron. Yeah, just really killer stuff. These guys have been pretty big for a little while now. I also love this genre of music and the album covers, how they all go together. These are more traditional paintings. It's not Frank Frazetta, but it kind of looks like Frank Frazetta there on the album cover. Actually, I think this artist passed away recently because Eternal Champion did sort of a memoriam for him. But yeah, really good stuff. Okay, no, it's not the same artist. I was actually going to see if it was the same artist, but again, very much Frank Frazetta inspired art, but just killer stuff. Eternal Champion's obviously great. I'm going to turn this down just a little bit more. I don't know how much is getting picked up on the radio, but it's blasting me out right now, which is great, which is good stuff. So anyways, going right along here, another one that's absolutely killer. This one's a little more, I'd say, like Judas Priest worship. There's lots of bands from the 80s, and I've actually got a couple in here towards the end that I recently found that are from the 80s. I'm starting to discover if you go hunt around in the bargain bins at some record stores, you can find some really great old metal albums that are maybe less well known for pretty cheap. But yeah, this band definitely is right up the Judas Priest alley. Riot City, really, really talented stuff here. This singer has a hell of a voice. He can hit some high notes. And these guys also just came out with a new album a few days ago. So listen to a little bit. It sounds fantastic. Same vein. Fits right up with everything. Love the airbrushed artwork on this. Something that is always a fun thing to come across. And I think this is actually airbrushed, or it might even be a acrylic painting, but it looks airbrushed. Great stuff. Definitely check this out. You know, again, I'm not super familiar with this genre or the previous genres. It's something I'm learning about. But I know there's like, you know, you got thrash, traditional classic heavy metal, speed metal, I think is maybe something that fits in this a little bit. Again, talking out of my expertise, or out of the realm of my expertise here. But yeah, I came across, and I'm hoping to get this soon. There is a compilation vinyl record came out of Russia, and it's called Monsters of Rock USSR. Look it up. It's got a picture of like a steel dragon with a guitar on the front of it. Really cool stuff on there. And I know there's a band called Cruise, something like that, that's on it. That's a Russian speed metal act. So I'm learning I like speed metal a lot too. Again, I am not as familiar with the differences in genres in this genre, but speed metal seems to be what I like. And Riot City might fit in the speed metal a little bit. Not 100% sure, but maybe. Next up, Midnight Priest. Just a great album, front to back. Really solid. Definitely these guys is, you know, they really come into their own with this. Came out in 2020. This is, I think, their second full length, and then they had a couple EPs before this, something like that. I've listened to them. They're good. But this one really, really, really nails it. Just that straight up 80s sound, classic rock vibe. Love the painting on the front too, very classic horror, fantastic stuff. So Midnight Priest, check it out if you have not yet. All right, this next band has a hell of an output over the last few years. Probably heard the name Trevor William Church by chance. But Trevor William Church is the man behind Haunts, which I have a couple of these albums. This was, where is it? There we go. Luminous Eyes was their first one, if I'm not mistaken. Great stuff. All these other ones came out with a new album this year. This project, let's see, 2018 is when this came out. This release came out. And there's something like 10 albums from this band now, from Church. It's insane the amount that this guy can put out. And they're all really killer. You know, to be honest about it, there's not a huge difference between the albums. It's a lot of the same kind of output, but it's really good. So if you do like what he does, then you've got lots to pull from in his material, because there's so many albums out there. So that's not a knock. Dude does what he does well, and is able to put out a ton for it. And of course, I love all of the classic style artwork here, sort of the screen printed, you know, kind of old school vibes. But yeah, fun stuff. Haunt. If you haven't heard of them, you know, get on board with that, because it's a great thing. You know, Trevor William Church, he knows what he's doing. He's a hell of a musician. Writes everything himself, if I'm not mistaken. You know, plays most of the instruments. Has a lot of good licks, a lot of riffage in those albums. So really killer stuff. Definitely check that out. Going right along here, Midnight Dice. There's some themes here. Midnight Priest, Midnight Dice. This album, Hypnotized from Midnight Dice, also has a pair of eyes on it. So lots of similarities in some of these bands. You know, they're all kind of pulling their vibes from the 80s, maybe some late 70s stuff, but definitely 80s. So you get some crossover on some things, but that's okay, because once you find something you like, you got a lot of other good things in there too to check out. So Midnight Dice, Hypnotized, very, very killer album. This band does have a female singer, and she's amazing. I hate saying stuff like female-fronted bands. It's just a band. It's just worth noting because she is phenomenal. But, you know, it doesn't really matter the gender of the person singing in the band. It's just fantastic stuff. But really, really great album. All of these I've shown so far should still be available or have recently got re-released. This one was a little tough to find. I was able to find it on Discogs. I think I got it shipped from Germany. But really, really killer stuff. Kind of priest worship a little bit here too, I'd say, maybe. But yeah, really, really killer. Really fantastic. Everything about it. The music, her voice is phenomenal. She really nails that 80s sound. But really powerful vocals, just killer stuff. So definitely check out Midnight Dies. Let me flip my cassette real quick. All right, side 2 starting. You can probably tell I don't know my classic metal very well because all I've been able to come with is Priest Worship, Judas Priest, and that's the only damn band I could come up off the top of my head from that era. So I'm still learning the ropes of classic metal. It seems like something I should know more about, but I really got into the black metal scene, and that's been my primary consumption since I've been into metal. So I'm branching out into some new things. So these two, actually I was able to pick this up at a show recently here in Minneapolis on a Monday night. Fantastic show, absolutely killer. I don't know, I'm scheduling a few videos, so I'm going to be putting the live video up of this band that I took. I don't know if it'll show up before or after this video, we'll find out. But either way, it's coming, and Screamer is absolutely killer. I think they're Swedish. It doesn't specify, but I think they're Swedes. I'm not 100% sure, but really good stuff. Same thing, lead singers hit some great high notes, really powerful vocals. Seeing them live, they sound just like the record live. They're able to pull off all of the instrumentation and vocals on this. Got them signed by a few of the members. This one, over on the side, I don't remember his name, but he was actually filling in with Screamer on their tour, and he is one of the guitar players of Visigoth. So that was cool to get to meet him. Super nice guy. All of them were super nice. Lead singer was a great dude too. So a great album to check out. Same thing, love the 80s, sort of VHS style with all of this. But really killer band, pretty straightforward classic metal. You can't go wrong with that. Another band that fits right along with them, Traveler, more space-themed classic metal, sci-fi type stuff. Screamer has that a little bit too, but Traveler definitely has the sci-fi theme going on. These two are very much in the same vein. Definitely their own style and originality. But if you like one, you'll like the other. So be sure to check both of these out. I guess there was a tour where Screamer and Traveler and Hunt were all on tour together, which would have been a hell of a show to see. So hopefully if that happens again at some point in time, I'll get to check it out. But good stuff, very good stuff. So yeah, this is kind of a quick run through of some of the modern new wave of traditional heavy metal bands I have, just for fun, showing them to you in case you want to check any of them out. Same thing, I was exposed through Chromium Dioxide Radio, which has sent me down that rabbit hole. If you want more in-depth information about some of these bands, maybe a little better explanation of some of the different styles, go check out Chromium Dioxide Radio. If nothing else, it's just an entertaining as hell channel. Even if you're not into metal, which you probably wouldn't be watching this if you weren't, but if you're not into metal or have a friend you want to kind of get exposed to metal, send them over to that channel. It's like the perfect blend of, public access television with, independent radio. It's got all of it. So I cannot express enough how great that channel is. But since, I've gotten into the new wave of traditional heavy metal, I'm also, like I said earlier, kind of going through bargain bins, just grabbing any cheap albums that have an interesting album cover to me that look kind of metal. So that's what I did the other day at Cheapo Records here in town. Cheapo Records is actually really good for used records because they are pretty cheap. These are both about $3 or $4 a piece. So I'm throwing them in here because they're new, but I got Rogue Mail First Visits. Pretty killer stuff. This is a little more, first thing that came to mind when I heard it was, it sounds a little bit like Motorhead. It's a little more of those kinds of vibes. Very kind of grungy, distortion-driven stuff. Coming from the 80s, definitely not hair metal 80s at all. Just Motorhead. If you like Motorhead, you'll probably dig this. This is one of those promotional copies you can find, which means it's pretty close to a first press, or it is a first press, because this would have been sent out to a radio station, as you can tell from the gold. Do not resell stamp on it, but of course I saw this. It's exactly what I'm looking for, you know, airbrushed art. That's some interesting sci-fi. Obviously, has to be a play on the Terminator. When did this come out? This was 85, and I think Terminator was 83 or something like that, maybe 84. So that, I mean, you know, there was a lot of sci-fi stuff like this going on in the 80s, but there had to be at least a little bit of an influence from Terminator on it. But really killer album. I've seen this album cover float around before. I just never knew what it was, so that was a pretty easy pickup when I got it. And then this next one, same thing, just saw the album cover. I was like, that looks fun, let's do it. Mass. Name of this one is New Birth. Really like this one a lot. Now this one is getting a little more into the realm of hair metal. It's not as big as hair metal is. It's more metal than hair metal, I would say. But really like this album a lot. Really good stuff. Super tight. Great production for the era it came out of. Great songwriting. Musicianship's great. Vocals great. Everything about it. And kind of bringing this all back around. So, you know, there's this new resurgence of sort of classic metal coming about, right? With all these bands I've shown. Well, a lot of older bands, and I don't know if it's directly correlated to this or not, but there's definitely a market for some of these older bands from the 80s to start putting out new material. And Mass has actually been putting out some stuff. This came out in 85, and then I think their second album came out in something like 97. And there might have been a couple more in there, but they started coming back and kind of regularly putting out albums in 2010. And ever since then, they've had a few albums out and just had another one come out in 2018. The one from 2018, I can't think of the name of it, but it's got a little kid sitting with some like sort of trippy mirrors and windows and stuff going on in the background, almost like maybe a Pink Floyd type looking cover. But it's really good, really fucking good. Check that one out. It's the newest Mass album. Again, I think it's about 2018, so it's not brand new. But it is fantastic. This is a great album. Absolutely check this one out. But be sure to check out the one from 2018. There's been some other bands too. I don't have it yet, but Glacier is one of those ones that they put out a record, maybe 2 in the 80s, but then they just put out something, I think it was last year or the year before. And it's killer. It's killer. I mean, these dudes are, you know, 30, 40 years older, but they're still doing a great job. Hell, they're doing a better job than some of the bigger popular bands are doing with, you know, Motley Crue, Vince Neil. It's no bueno. It's not good. It's very bad. Just hang it up, my friend. I'm not giving you shit for getting older, but you gotta know when to hang it up, okay? But some of these other bands, like Mass, they still fucking got it. They sound great. So, can't recommend this one enough. Very, very good stuff. And then I'm just throwing this one in here too, because this is another thing I'm kind of on the hunt for when I am just at record stores browsing the cheapo bins. But some of the old metal compilations. So I was talking about that Russian one before, the Monsters of Rock USSR, which has like Cruise and some other actually semi-popular speed metal acts on it. But it's a great way to sort of, I mean, it's still accomplishing today what its goal was back then, which was sort of give you a bunch of bands, find some you like, and then you go buy their albums. Well, you know, these albums are from the 80s, but they're still doing that for me today because I'm going and looking up some of these bands, even though it's 30, 40 years later. But this is one, Metal Over America. Same thing as always, just thought it was a cool album cover, definitely super 80s, so I thought I'd give it a try. It's fantastic, lots of great stuff on here. You might know some of these. I am not familiar with any of them, but there's Black Lace, Attila, which of course is not the Attila from Mayhem. I think he had a project called Attila too. It's not that. This is, you know, separate project. New Haven, Trace, Takashi. Takashi's on here a couple times. Timer. Actually, it looks like a couple of these bands have at least 2 songs on here. But yeah, New Haven was killer. Black Lace was good. Takashi was fantastic. Yeah, good stuff. So these old metal comps, they're usually really cheap. This is, I think, $2. And it's just got a lot of great stuff on it. You can kind of see the bands there. There we go. You got an idea of what they all look like. But really killer stuff. I'm really enjoying the comps. I'm going to be looking for more of those. Again, I'm going to order that Monsters of Rock USSR album because it is killer. It's just speed metal out the max, out the ass. It's hard to find because they're all, you know, overseas. There's not a lot here in the U.S., but I'm always on the hunt for it. So, but yeah. Anyways, there you go. There's my sort of new wave of traditional heavy metal, along with some actual old school heavy metal mixed in. Genre I am quickly really getting a collection started on. I'm really enjoying it. I'm gonna plug it one more time, and I'm not getting paid to say this. It's just because I love it that much. Chromium Dioxide Radio. Go subscribe right now. If you didn't stop earlier and go do it now. You're gonna love it. It's the best thing that exists on the internet. So, yep, go do that for sure. I appreciate y'all being here as always. Fun hanging out with you, and we'll see you soon.